Water is a basic human right. Yet, more than 785 million people lack access to clean water. That's 1 in 10 people on the planet. A growing problem, water scarcity affects more than 40% of the global population. As per the UN Water Report 2021, 2.3 billion people live in water-stressed countries. 1.42 billion people, including 450 million children, live in areas of high or extremely high water vulnerability. About 4 billion people, representing nearly 2/3 of the global population, experience severe water scarcity during at least 1 month of the year. With the crisis accelerating, this could increase to around 6 billion by 2050. What's causing water scarcity? Why is water stress becoming a bigger and bigger problem for the world? What are countries doing to alleviate the problem and ensure water security? That's the global debate. Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teena Jha. The World Water Week 2022 was held from the 23rd of August to 1st of September on the theme Seeing the Unseen, the Value of Water. The event held in Sweden focused on 3 perspectives: the value of water for people and development, the value of water for nature and climate change, and the financial and economic value of water. Given that billions of people across countries lack access to one of the most essential elements of life, that is clean water, how is the world facing the greatest water-related challenge of scarcity and accessibility? That and much more on this edition of the Global Debate. Pleased to welcome an illustrious panel of experts joining us virtually from different countries. Let me welcome Ms. Lan Wong Erlandsen. She's a researcher at the Stockholm University. Ms. Lei Lan, she's an environmental economist at the Asian Development Bank. And Mr. Vinay Harshwal, he is WRM Specialist, Water for People, India. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of the Global Debate on Sansad TV. Ms. Lan Wong Erlandsen, let me begin the program today with you. So before we delve deeper into how severe the global water crisis is and what the world is doing to tackle the challenge, let me begin the conversation with you on the just concluded Water for Week 2022 at Stockholm. So at the conference this year, what are the kind of conversations that took place around global water security? And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you also participated in the event. So what is the significant takeaway from this leading water conference this year?
As you mentioned, the topic of this year's conference was on unseen water. I think one of the key takeaways this year is how important it is that we also value and see the functioning of water in a broader sense, so including the soil moisture that we do not see directly, but it's so important for all life on land, for agriculture, for our food production. And as well, the groundwater that we also is not directly visible, but it's such an important buffer for our water availability that is now declining irrecoverably. And then we also have water's function for climate change, as the water scarcity that we see today is to a very large extent driven by climate change. But here, water is also acting. So for example, a fourth of the carbon emissions from humans are absorbed and taken up by the land system, which is dependent on water availability. So there is a positive feedback loop there. And then the other significantly important takeaway from the conference is the value, how to value water. And here, that's beyond my expertise, but it's really important in finding these solutions to value both economically, but also in other ways of how to see this water and account for it and work with it.
Absolutely. And that's a key perspective, around which the 3 themes this time, Ms. Lei Lan, was weaved at the World Water Week. Help us and our viewers understand about the financial and economic value of water. Is the fact that because water is a natural resource, that it's been undervalued, it's been misused, and perhaps that is what has led us to the kind of water crisis that we are witnessing globally?
From the financial and economic analysis, because as you all know, that water is a natural resources, and then it's is an intangible. We can say that it is the intangible market item. So there's no such kind of we cannot use a basic normal economic approach to monetize the water. And then that is one perspective, and another perspective is that the water has the not only value for economically, financially, but also has the value for environmental. And the environmental value of water is indeed very difficult, and it's not a direct way to value that we can value the water. So because of all the multiple use of water contribute to the difficult valuation of the water, and it make it the water is not visible, not seeable in terms of monetary value, and it make the people underestimate the value of water, and making it more and more extractive use of water.
Absolutely. So monetizing water is something that's, of course, not sustainable, keeping in mind the large population that's dependent on it. But we'll discuss what are the emerging solutions in just a while in the program. But let me go across to Mr. Vinay Harshwal and get in his perspective. Mr. Harshwal, the theme this year of the World Water Week was seeing the unseen, the value of water. Clearly, the spotlight was on groundwater. So making what's invisible visible to the world. Do you think groundwater is extremely important today, and the fact that we need to replenish it because of the large population that's dependent on it? And let me also relate it to the fact that for India, it's extremely important. 18% of the population of the world, but just about 4% of the world's freshwater resources. So that, of course, makes us one of the most water-stressed countries in the world. So how are we managing it in terms of the crisis that the entire globe today is reeling under?
Yes, thank you, Teena. Actually, as you said that the freshwater resources are only 4% available. So out of this 4%, 30% is the groundwater, and only 0.3% is the water available in the form of glaciers in the lake streams. Only 0.3% of water is available. So the after the surface water, the burden on the groundwater is increasing. More and more groundwater extraction is being done, and if you see, the reliability on the groundwater is increasing. So the groundwater level is depleting very fast at an alarming rate across globally. Not in India, all over across the globe, it has been found that the groundwater level has been depleting. So groundwater resources, which is a very reliable source of groundwater, it is being depleted in the major portions of the country. Now, Central Groundwater Board of India that assess the every 3 years the assessment of the blocks has been carried out. So, according to the 2020 report, 6,965 blocks were assessed. Out of these 6,965 blocks, 15% blocks are found to be overexploited. That is the extraction of groundwater is more than the annually replenished groundwater. So it is more than 100%. So around 1,114 blocks in the country has been found out to be overexploited blocks, and the numbers are increasing. Mm-hmm. So more focus should be done on the recharge of the groundwater, and for sustainable water management, community-based water management should be is the key for the sustainable water
Certainly.
management.
So what Water for People is doing, what are the kind of efforts that you are engaged in when it comes to sustainable water management is something that I will come back to you in just a moment. But you mentioned two key factors which are, further stressing the water systems across the world. One, Ms. Elanson, is population growth and rapid urbanization, which has led to this increasing water stress that we are witnessing, particularly in high populated areas. But how do you see climate change making an impact? How has global warming exacerbated the crisis?
So climate change actually makes the water cycle intensify. So we do have more rainfall on a global scale than before, but this water is unevenly distributed, which means that we will have more flood and more drought, both at the same time in different places. The problem is also that even if we manage on a global scale, hold on to a 1.5 warming goal, the Paris Agreement targets, we will see these extreme events to increase. Already now, what we're seeing this year is beyond what a researcher would have been expected already now, and it will get worse because of the inertia in the Earth system. And the world that we're heading towards, the 3-degree warming, will be much worse. And it's a non-linear impact on the water cycle that we see per degree warming. So it's very important to hold on to the Paris Agreement goal for the water cycle as well.
Certainly, and the impact of it is currently already visible in large parts of Europe, in some parts of the United States of America. Asia is already a water-stressed region. Mr. Harshwal, let me come back to you and now take on the question of sustainable water management, especially for a country like India, where population growth is something that, of course, it can't be controlled. We are set to now become the most populated country. Urbanization is going to happen at a rapid pace. So in the next few years or so, half of India's population is going to be living in cities. So water management is very, very important, and sustainably. As a member of Water for People, which is working for sustainable water management, give us and our viewers a sense of what actually you're doing for integrated supply of water to communities, and especially, people who are deprived of this valuable resource.
Water for People supports community-based water management, as it is one of key strategies for analyzing, planning and managing water resources in an equitable and sustainable way. So, Water for People has successfully demonstrated models across project level for developing climate resilient infrastructure and WRM components such as measure, conserve, recharge, replenish, reduce, recycle, reuse, and prevention of contamination of water bodies, and also the water quality monitoring and treatment. So, WFPI models are based on multidisciplinary approach of sustainable water use, improvement of water resources management practices, and climate resilient infrastructure. So number one, we can say that water resources planning and management should be based on conjunctive use of water, that is surface water and groundwater together. Also integration of wastewater wherever it is possible. Also look at the supply augmentation and demand management through water use efficiency, rationing measures wherever appropriate, and it should be based on the water budgeting. Water budgeting should also be considered and planned in every village or the community we are working with. So local communities need to be involved in planning and management as required to manage a common pool resource. And behavior change is an important aspect in every planning. When we are talking about the water resource management at a community level, behavior change component is a very important factor to be done. Also, the capacity building of the funding is available, but to implement the water resource management in a scientific way, there is a clear lack of capacity in the communities, so that they can take the so that they can plan their water resources in a sustainable and a scientific way.
Absolutely.
Suppose if something is done, it should be done in a scientific way approach. If we are working in a discharge zone and are doing the recharge tactics in the discharge zone, then it will not affect it. It will not going to increase the groundwater resource, or it will not going to contribute to the groundwater resource. So scientific based approach is very much required.
So how
also
is
participatory groundwater management with the community participation, groundwater management, analyzing the groundwater levels, and doing the participatory groundwater management with the involvement of community is very much important.
Absolutely. And all of this that you have pointed out, Mr. Harshwal, is not just important for India, but globally, because now we are seeing more and more countries reeling under this crisis that India has faced and will continue to face if we do not find sustainable water solutions. Ms. Leland, let me now come to you, because the fact that the escalating water stress globally has not been matched by the level of awareness, also the kind of investment that it requires. So when we talk about emerging solutions, what really are the challenges, particularly in terms of investment?
Yes, so so as you all know, in order to achieve the Millennium Development Goals about water by 2030, we will need a huge amount of investment, and clearly that public finance is not enough for now. So for now, the issue is what we have to do is to engage private sector participation into the investment in water sector, particularly in water infrastructure. And in order to engage the private participation in the water sector, the raising awareness, knowledge exchange, communication are very important to engage more effectively the private sector participation and investment.
Absolutely. Investment going forth, Ms. Lanson, is going to be very, very important. And this is where we are seeing, there is a lack of investment. There is also a lack of awareness, as we have discussed. But do you think that this, all of these problems, when they arise globally, it's only then that the world begins to take notice? So, for example, the impact of climate change. And now that large parts of Europe, US, and several other countries are reeling under water crisis, that the world has begun to once again talk about the immediate solutions that are required to tackle this huge water challenge. Do you also think this particular sector has suffered from lack of innovation?
I think innovations are definitely one side. I think one thing, if we go back to the issue of unseen water, is that we tend to think of water as the water that we consume, that there's nothing we can do about it. But water, we use an immense amount of water for producing the textile, the clothes, beer, food, meat, everything that we eat, and our buildings, all of these are demanding water, which is why we have concepts like water footprint account for the indirect water use. The problem with coming back to the global issue of it is that the droughts, the floods are seen across the globe. It's not only India, it's not only Southern Europe, it's everywhere. And because these extreme events increase in how often they are, how severe they are, the likelihood that they occur at the same time is also growing, which can have very disruptive effect on a global scale.
Okay. Mr. Harshwal, another aspect that I would like you to share your perspective with us and our viewers is on the process of desalination. Now, this is one procedure that is being now used by more and more countries. But is it a process that is sustainable in the long run, and can it solve the water crisis? What do you think, Mr. Harshwal?
In long term, when we see that 97% of water available on the planet Earth is saline water, and it is available in the ocean. So large amount of water is available, and there is a large potential of in that. The treatment, we also have to look at the cost of the treatment, that whether it is economical for the communities. When we are talking about the rural communities residing in the remote villages, where we are providing the infrastructure to the Jal Jeevan Mission, how we are going to transport this water. So there are various factors that are also to be considered while the uses of the desalination water plants.
And is it sustainable, looking at the fact that it's a little cost intensive and also energy intensive? Can it be sustainable, particularly for countries like India and the other developing countries?
I think that with the running cost, if we can see that desalination can be a great solution. But looking at the economical and cost effectiveness, we should think of the other approaches through which like rainwater, also rainwater harvesting in the communities, where we in countries like India, when we are talking about the rural population that are completely dependent upon the groundwater. So if we are talking in the coastal communities, then we can say that the desalination can be though it may be very not economical as per when we see about the world, but in the coastal communities this can be a sustainable solution in long term. If we are not seeing the cost, or if the cost is not the concern.
Okay.
But in the remote areas, when we are talking in the land system, in the rural population, the sustainable sources are groundwater sources, and the solution is there so that the rainwater, whatever the rainfall, wherever the rain falls, we have to catch that rain and we have to use it, because it is a very cost-effective solution. Because rainwater is the only solution, when we can see the sources, water resources, surface water, groundwater, but only source, the common source is the rainwater, and we should do the rainwater harvesting. We should catch the rain whenever it is falling and whenever it is falling. So rainwater is a very cost-effective solution. Desalination of the ocean water or the saline water is a solution which can be applicable for the coastal communities or the communities residing at the coastal communities, because we can't transport the saline water. The transportation costs in the interior parts of the
Absolutely. I think
parts of India can be
that's a valid point, because in the longer run, we have to look at cost-effective solutions and something that is sustainable as well. Ms. Leland, so we've spoken about, the causes of water crisis, what has in fact brought us to this situation of water stress across continents. But help us understand about the kind of impact it is having on people's health, on the environment, and most importantly, how is it impacting the development of people, of communities, particularly of women and children, which is in turn impacting the progress of the countries?
Yes, so with the water scarcity, many people, especially the vulnerable group of people such as women, elder people, and children are very, very vulnerable and affected by the water scarcity situation. And it can lead to, and it has a very strong linkage with the poverty. Because lack of access to water, it means that also you cannot produce your agriculture, you don't have access to food, safety, sanitation, and it can lead to the health problem, undernourished, and then a lot of water-related disease. It will hamper. It will lead to the country will be underdeveloped because of this water scarcity situation. And in addition, it's not only about the health, the economic of the country, but it's also about the environment. Because as you can see, with the groundwater depletion and with a lot of river water pollution, it can cause the loss of biodiversity, cause the loss of wetlands and many ecosystem services. And this contribute to exacerbate the climate change situation, worsen the climate change situation. And again, it will link back to the water scarcity, because of the climate change, the water will be again reduced and reduced. And then that's why in order to manage this problem, we need an integrated approach that requires not only one single sector, but also multiple sectors, everyone, public and private sectors, environment, forest conservation, biodiversity conservation, economic, health, and all kinds of sectors together, join hand collaboration to solve the issues.
You're absolutely right. So governments alone cannot manage this crisis. It will take combined efforts of civil society, of the private sector, and of course, the foundation is the public to largely meet this challenge of water crisis. Ms. Elanson, I'll take one last comment from you. So when we talk about the way ahead, ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all is one of the key SDG goals for the world. So what kind of progress do you see the world having made on this aspect? And has there been any impact of the COVID pandemic? Has it undone the little progress that we had made over decades?
We need more progress, clearly. And one takeaway I would like to say is also that we must not underestimate the rate of change that is ahead. So the importance, so with the COVID pandemic, and there was also critiques that the government have not funded. So it could also been seen, the COVID pandemic could also be seen as an opportunity to invest in sustainable solutions, which has not taken place place in the extent that could have worked. And I think it reflects how we tend to, I mean, report after report tell us that it's more cost effective, it costs much less to act proactively to mitigate climate change, to act on these goals rather than having the damages coming into our face. And the problem is often that it's easy to see that the policymakers have taken decisions that incur cost, whereas the climate change impact come from seemingly from nature, but actually from our inaction. So it's important that government and policy consider the cost of inaction and do not underestimate the non-linear impacts of climate change. So that we have drought and then say glacier melts that interact with that, for example.
Absolutely. Very quickly, Mr. Harshwal, time is running out. 30 seconds. For India, it's very important to create urban water resilient systems. What kind of progress are we making towards that front?
Yes, to achieve the climate resilience through Jal Jeevan Mission, we are covering the water infrastructure for the water supply facilities. But for the sustainable sources, we need to focus, we need to change the attitude that to take the water for granted. It is taken as granted. Nobody wants to take care about the water, but it is decreasing, and it is decreasing at an alarming rates. Also, the capacity building of the service authorities, service providers, and communities. We need to build the capacities of the water manager, and especially in the vulnerable communities. And the more importantly, we need to take part. We need to means at a large scale. The decision-making authority should be women in the communities, because in India we can see that the women are the only one who are at the forefront of the crisis. Women and school children, small girls, who have the responsibility of bringing the waters to their homes. They are at the forefront of the crisis at a global level.
Absolutely. So and all of this crisis has an impact on their development, their progress, and it's all interconnected. So the action on one front will mean a solution for the other as well. That having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the global debate today to discuss this very, very pertinent topic of the global water crisis and the kind of solutions that the world should look at. And sharing your thoughts, your views on this very, very important subject. Absolute pleasure to have all three of you on the program today. So that's it from us on the program today. Viewers, thank you for your time as well. I'll see you same time next week now with another topic and a different set of panelists. Until then, take good care of yourselves and keep watching Sansad TV.